for an in-depth analysis on the Electoral Commission of South Africa's appeal move. We are now joined by political analyst Thobani Zikalala. Zikalala, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. Was this appeal by the IEC expected?
Good evening, Mamsomi. I think it was not expected. Many of us have thought that it is very clear that the electoral court in electoral matters is the final arbiter. Therefore, their decision becomes final on this matter, and you don't go anyway, but you simply apply. Because remember, the IEC's role is to administer elections. The IEC's role is not to determine whether or not this one or that one must be on the ballot. Of course, it is brought into the terrain should there be someone who objects to the candidacy of a person. So the IEC now seems to running the risk, as I think what the former Commissioner Tselane was saying, that it runs the risk of seeming to be entering the theater of politics. And when it does that, it then casts doubt on its ability to deliver free and fair elections. Because the question would be, what is the sudden haste and sudden agency for the IEC to seek clarity on this matter? Because the court has pronounced itself, and the court has said, in this case, this type of objection should not stand, and the person who's being objected must be able to stand. In future, of course, the IEC could go to court or any other platform to seek clarity of the interpretation, but there is no agency unless there is this idea of trying to find clarity on the specific candidates that stand for election. And at that time, the IEC would almost run the risk of entering the theater of politics and find itself in the position where the elections that it administers may be doubt on its ability to deliver free and fair elections. And I don't think that's where the IEC wants to find itself.
Most certainly. The IEC is saying that this is an issue of clarity. The MK party has come back and says that they see this as overreaching by the IEC and says that the IEC's independence is now then questionable. Do you think that the MK party is in the right standing for them to have such a place in them thinking that the IEC could be questioned on this?
I think it's a double-edged sword. The IEC could, in the long run, be correct to say there must be clarity on this section and its application. But the question is then whether there is urgency at this point when the court, the final arbiter on electoral matters has finally pronounced itself. The MK party would be almost correct also when it says the IEC seems to have vested interest and seems to now be entering the theater of politics. That's the game that is going to be very difficult, and that's why I believe that the IEC could have let this one go. In that they are not acting on their own volition. They are acting on a clearly interpreted matter in terms of the laws in a court of law where the objection that was at place has been interpreted, and the court of law has set precedent and said, in this case, this objection must not be upheld. The IEC must act on that. But now the IEC seems to be rushing. One question is, what is the IEC seeking to appeal? Is it seeking to appeal the decision of the electoral court? I don't think they have got a right on that side. Of course, I'm not a legal expert. Also, the issue is that the decision that they are seeking to appeal, there has no right to take addendum. So then they have a situation where the reasoning of the decision of the judgment, they don't know it. They don't know the reasoning of the judges. Can't they wait for the reasoning of the judges or seek the reasoning of the judges so that they see how the interpretation was done? That's one part. But if then they are saying they are going to the constitutional court to seek an interpretation of the constitution, the question would be, is the constitutional court a court of first instance? It is not. So you can go to the high court. Why are you going to the constitutional court? And also on the other side, remember that you then have a Supreme Court of Appeal also. So all of these things suggest that there is a haste on the side of the IEC that could be avoided with the IEC simply applying the decision of the electoral court, and then, of course, in the future, seeking further clarification of this matter. But there is no haste that says this must be done now.
I mean, if you look at how the South African democracy playing field has been over the last 30 years, a lot of it has seemed to be very smooth sailing, where the IEC has only just had to administer what they needed to administer. And it seems like this year they've bitten more than they can chew. It seems like more is coming onto the IEC's plate. Do you find that they're finding themselves in a place of discomfort, in a place where they're entering waters that they've never necessarily have entered into before?
Of course, I would agree with you. I mean, elections before have almost been straightforward. And these elections, since maybe a year or two ago, everyone has always been saying that the 2024 elections are going to be the most important elections that we've had since 1994. The question that we need to ask ourselves from the IEC is an issue of whether or not the IEC was ready for some of the turbulences that are now occurring. Because it seems as if the IEC moved as if the political terrain and landscape in South Africa is the same and everything is going to be smooth sailing. Whereas there were many changes that were happening that they seem to have not been ready for. It's tight calendar. And of course, remember, when the dates are announced, there's always consultation between them in terms of state of readiness, and the ANC and the president announces the date. I mean, they could have waited. I mean, they had time to consult your president and say, we are not ready. Give us the 3 months allowed in the constitution so that we are ready by August. But they were not. I mean, it seems they agreed with the president that they were ready to deliver these elections. And it doesn't seem that they were ready for the eventualities that will happen politically. And that, for me, is the worry. But we cannot also be seen to be casting doubts and aspersions on the IEC and its role and its duty of delivering free and fair elections. I still believe that they can deliver that. The one thing they must be careful of is that they must not be seen to be entering into the dispute of politicians. Theirs is simply to administer elections, and they act on what the law says. And currently, the law says, in terms of the electoral court, that President Jacob Zuma must be on the ballot. Unless the court pronounces itself otherwise, you can't go against that. And when you seem to be rushing to question that decision and have it appealed and have interpretation, you now seeming like someone who's got a vested interest. Remember, the objections are not yours, right? The objections of candidates are not yours. These are objections of individuals that were appealed in the electoral courts, and the decision there has been made. So you then have a decision of the Court of Law that says you were wrong to uphold that objection. It does not say that you are now an institution that has no credibility or otherwise. It's simply saying that you may have applied the law incorrectly. And remember, you are not a court. You are not a legal institution.
Right.
You are an institution that runs elections. So you could have been wrong, and that's fine. Now it seems that when you are doing it, it seems you have a vested interest, and for me, that's what I worry about.
Thobani, lastly and very quickly, I mean, when we come back to the MK party, with them being in and out of the courts, especially during a critical time such as this revolving door of them being in the courts, do you think it creates some kind of a perception in terms of reputational damage for them as a party with the electorate and those that are going to the polls on the 29th of May?
PR people will say any publicity is good publicity. I mean, a party like MK Party does not enjoy maybe big media coverage. So this for them helps. And also it almost organizes for them a rally every week. Of course, there may be some knock in terms of reputational damage. Of course, also looking at who leads the party and the legal backlash that he has had in the past. Someone could say, but Jacob Zuma is back with his legal backlash. But I think that it doesn't do much big harm in them. In fact, it keeps them in the public consciousness a lot and makes them to be able to be in that space. I think the courts of law, it seems that it's not a matter of the MK party seeking the court. It seems that they've been dragged there. And they seem to have been ready for all these eventualities if you look at how much they are winning the court cases. Maybe there's a long game that they are playing in terms of this dispute, which we don't know at this moment. But I don't think they are going to suffer much from being at the court for long, especially if they are able to use they are being encouraged to continue to almost as mini rallies for galvanizing support and seeking public sympathy.
All right, Thobani, thank you so much for your time and for your insights this evening. That was political analyst Thobani Zikalala. Well, let's